Now let's look at what the US government is up to. Yesterday was fairly standard. New day, new sanctions. Normal American Monday blues. Their target was an old favorite, Zimbabwe. It's a country in southern Africa. It's home to about 17 million people, and they've seen it all. For decades, the country was under the iron fist of Robert Mugabe, a freedom fighter turned dictator. Sadly, a common story. He ruled for 30 years, then planned to hand over power to his wife, but in 2017, he was ousted in a coup. Instead of his wife, his vice president took over, continuing the cycle of single-party rule and oppression, just with a different face in charge. As you can tell, the country has been through a lot, including American sanctions. Zimbabwe has been subjected to them for decades now, especially their political class. Washington accuses Zimbabwe's ruling party, the ZANU-PF, of corruption, political repression, and other standard autocratic behavior. These sanctions have never had their desired effect. As I said, Zimbabwe continues to be run by the same party, the ZANU-PF. So we keep hearing stories about rigged elections and dead opposition figures. No matter what the US has tried, they remain a constant. This may remind you of the old adage, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But believe it or not, this time it is different. The US decided to fine-tune its sanctions. Instead of carpet bombing, they went for a precision strike approach, restricting the sanctions to just the top brass and bringing relief to many unfairly targeted people. The latest sanctions target just 11 individuals and 3 companies in Zimbabwe. Most of these people were already on the list, like Zimbabwe's president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, Mugabe's vice president, who is now the man in charge. He is accused of ordering the political repression and of abetting corruption on a grand scale. Look at the US Treasury Department's accusations. They say the president provides protection to gold and diamond smugglers. He is accused of taking bribes to allow them to smuggle precious minerals out of the country and sell them in quote-unquote illicit markets. Zimbabwe's president is also accused of misappropriating state assets and corruption in handing out government contracts. This is why the US has kept him under sanctions. There are also other government officials on the list, like one of the country's vice presidents and the defense minister. They're there for political repression. That's what they're accused of. The new inductees include the First Lady of Zimbabwe, Auxilia Mnangagwa. She's accused of facilitating her husband's corruption. Then there are some shady businessmen and their companies and some police officials, so standard stuff there. But again, this list is very precise. Like I said, just 11 people and 3 firms. The US has actually removed more sanctions than it has imposed. Removed them from dozens of companies and individuals in Zimbabwe, bringing relief to hundreds of people in the country. The Deputy Secretary of the US Treasury, Wally Adeyemo, has said this, and I'm quoting, "The changes we are making today are intended to make clear what has always been true. Our sanctions are not intended to target the people of Zimbabwe." That is why this no longer seems like insanity. The approach, like we said, has changed. American sanctions no longer threaten ordinary people, and Zimbabwe's government is calling this a victory. Even though their president is under sanctions, they say this is a vindication of his foreign policy. Talk about turning a defeat into a celebration, though they're still upset. One government spokesperson said this, that as long as the first family is under sanctions, all of Zimbabwe remains under sanctions, which is not true though. The president and his wife will still feel the pinch, but many ordinary citizens will get relief. They no longer have to pay for the crimes of their political overlords. They never should have had to. It was always a mistake, but at least that has been rectified now. So hopefully America will stick by this new, less insane approach.